Welcome back to Slow Night Sleepy Stories. Tonight we join Master Wonhyo on his fifth journey, the training at Yongshindang, deep in the mountains. Far away from the busy world, deep within the ancient peaks, there lies a small hermitage touched only by the wind and clouds. Here Wonhyo sat alone, facing his true self in total silence. In this sanctuary, all the noise of the world fades away. The only sound that remains is the rhythm of your own breath. Tonight, leave your worries at the foot of the mountain. Come and rest under the quiet eaves of Yongshindang, where true peace awaits. To help you drift into a deep sleep, the screen will slowly fade to complete darkness after 5 minutes. You can rest easy, knowing the light will not disturb you. Now, breathe in the fresh mountain air and let go of everything. Wonhyo heard about Gasangadang from the boy Sasama and thought that he too would go there and undergo that trial. The scenery while going up along the stream was very good. As he went up, the village entrance became narrower and the sound of the water grew louder. The rocks were also fine. However, Wonhyo did not have the peace of mind to fully enjoy this scenery. As he entered the uninhabited country road and heard only the sounds of water and wind, all his thoughts rose up at once. What had become of Princess Yoseok? Wonhyo did not think that his mind had become that disturbed while he was with Princess Yoseok at the Yoseok Palace. He believed that he had never lost himself at any moment, and even when leaving Yoseok Palace, he felt he had shed his burden as soon as he stepped out the door, leaving nothing remaining or staining his mind. However, when he was alone and quiet, the image of Princess Yoseok appeared. While calling it a natural thing, he did not think of it with such intense longing. He merely thought that Princess Yoseok was a beautiful woman whenever and by whomever she was seen. The thought that it would not do for Wonhyo to be unable to forget a woman came first. But as soon as he entered Gasanga Valley, Princess Yoseok weighed heavily on his mind. What has happened? Has she conceived a child? Wonhyo thought of the baby that might have settled in Princess Yoseok's womb. It is a life following Wonhyo through a deep connection from time immemorial. The power of that karma drove Wonhyo on and on, making him go to Princess Yoseok. Wonhyo was finally defeated by the power of that karma. Wonhyo's spiritual power did not have the strength to cut this string. When Wonhyo thought of this, he let out a deep sigh, "I have lost," and simultaneously recalled the relationship of meeting and parting again, between himself, Yoseok, and the child to be born, across past lives and many lives. In Wonhyo's eyes, an infinitely long string in the boundless void appeared tied to his body. To cut this string is the teaching of Sakyamuni Buddha, Wonhyo thought. However, countless strings of karma were engaged upon Wonhyo's body, connecting to countless sentient beings, and they seemed to reach into infinite space and infinite time. Among them, at this moment, the string tied between Princess Yoseok's body and his own was pulled the tightest. Is my going up to Gasangadang now also being pulled by the power of some other karma? Wonhyo stood still. Suddenly, the sound of water became louder. Let's go, go as it goes, and let happen what may. Wonhyo thought this and started walking again. On the road, Wonhyo met several people practicing asceticism. There were monks with knapsacks, troops, shamans, and young, pretty trainees. They all wore yellow hemp clothes and conical hats. They all harbored some wish in their hearts and were cultivating the way while serving their respective gods. They greeted each other saying, "Look, look." Their eyes were sharp and their actions were firm. It seemed they would not miss the sound of even a single hair moving anywhere. Having bodies that had eaten only gangabap, gruel, for 100-day prayer, they were emaciated to the point of looking blue, but there was no emptiness in any corner. The difference from Buddhist monks was that instead of a compassionate light in their eyes, there was a murderous spirit. A sharp, cold light flowed from their eyes. Wonhyo thought that while Buddhist training lies in cutting off all desires, the Banga training is because it gathers all desires into a single desire. If they were to glare at a hated person with those eyes once, it seemed that person would die on the spot. Even if they glanced briefly while passing by, it was fierce enough to give one goosebumps. Sending these people off, Wonhyo climbed deeply into the valley. Wonhyo arrived at Gangadang when the sun was at noon. The droughty June sunlight seemed to be pouring fire. Even though it was a mountain valley with the sound of water, beads of sweat flowed from his whole body. Wonhyo saw 4 or 5 men sitting naked on rocks by the stream. These people were exposing their bodies to Bangara, pronounced Bagara, meaning light, which is the power of the Ba, sun god, to make their bodies skinny. This is called Gangabi, and also Gungi, or Gungni. It involves immersing the body in sunlight, quietly thinking about past events, encountered events, and coming events, thereby burning away old faults on one hand and investigating the truth of the universe on the other. Ganga Ba means seeing Ga, that is, the sun's sun, Ganga. The reason we think with our heads is that there is Ganga, that is, the sun, inside our heads. The purpose of this Ganga or Geosigi training is to discard worldly distracting thoughts, take off clothes covering the body, and sit upright naked in the sunlight, that is, Ganga, to make the mind clear and bright like the sunlight. Wonhyo washed his body clean in the stream water to perform Meosigi, purification, and entered Gangadang to light the Gangara fire. This involves lighting a fire with pine knots. In the front of Gangadang, a Gangama, also called Gangaba, was placed on a 2-legged table. This was the spirit tablet. The Gangama was an 8-sided copper plate polished to a shine. The Gangara fire reflected on the Gangama, making the flames flicker. Wonhyo bowed 4 times, called Gasaba 4 times, clapped his hands, and rubbed them. This meant, "May the 4 sun gods of Ganarasa shade awaken and hear my Baragwara petition." Ga is the sun, and Narasa are the sun's 3 sons. Na is light and heat. He is the god who ripens all grains and all living things. He is the ruler of the kingdom of brightness. Ra, or Ara, is darkness, clouds, and the dragon Yong. He is the ruler of the kingdom of darkness. This god is called Aranga. Sa is water and life. Although the Sangha god gives water and life, the power of Sangha does not arise without the 2, Nanga and Aranga. Therefore, the power of the one Ga acts as the 3, Na, Ra, and Sa, to govern Ganara, the world. This is all the work done by the Ga god, that is, the sun god, and is his grace. Gangaradang explained the origins of the sun god to Wonhyo in this way. Wonhyo lifted the Gangarasa, also called Bar, a small gong, and rang it 4 times. Wonhyo first had to perform the Ganga Ma Heng. It is a practice of washing the body, basking in the sun, and thinking for several days. One must not eat fishy things, must not sleep, and must not have obscene thoughts. Eating is limited to Gangabap, 4 small bowls, twice a day. Hearing this explanation, Wonhyo pledged to strictly observe it. The pledge involved staining the hand with ink and pressing it onto white paper to print the hand shape. The Jim pledge is a shortened word for Dadama. Wonhyo finished the Gangaramaji offering, took off his clothes, went to the stream, and chose a rock. Then he sat on the rock in the Ganga sit posture. It involves raising both knees, leaning the body slightly forward, supporting oneself with both arms, and receiving the sunlight on the back. Since it is sitting in the posture of a dog, in this case the back becomes the Gangal, that is, a mirror. His back was hot as if searing, and sweat flowed like beads over his whole body. Wonhyo made a firm resolution. Even if his back were to burn and peel, he would not move. He only watched his shadow reflecting in the water in front of him turn, changing the direction of his body so that the sun would shine directly on his back. The supervising Gangadang occasionally went around with a switch, whipping the buttocks of those whose posture was not correct. Although Wonhyo did not disturb his posture in the slightest, he received whippings twice. With a thwack sound, it hurt enough to bring tears. Every time it hurt, his spirit cleared. Occasionally, entering the water was permitted. It involved immersing the body in clear water and scrubbing the body with sand. This is also called Meosigi. When the sun hung on the western mountain, the Gangari metal rang and the Baga drum sounded. Only then did the training Gangas put on short breeches covering only the belly and crotch. This is called Bandara or Bandasi, and the character Pil is used. It means the shape of wearing it is like the character. Then they cleanly swept and wiped the hall, the yard, and the stream edges, and after that they ate what is called Gangabap. This is gruel boiled with rice and hazelnuts or acorns. Hazelnuts are called gangabam. Basa is the Silla word for sun, and because the shape of the hazelnut resembles the sun, it is offered to the Ganga god as Sanaba, new chestnut, green chestnut, first harvest. The gruel was put in a jukpada, large bowl, and placed before the Ganga god first. Then the group sat around in a circle like the sun, received it in small bowls, raised it above their heads, and then ate it. The chopsticks used for eating are called basa, made from branches of the bosap tree. The bosap tree is a tree with round leaves, so bush clover, sari, is also called basara. The sulgara spoon is for eating water or broth. Food offered to the Ganga god, that is the Banga god or Bangsanga god, is boiled by burning basa wood. Saba, meaning brushwood, is used as a substitute, and basara, meaning bush clover, is also used as a substitute. The sa in shari is not a tense S sound, but a tense B sound. After eating all the gruel, they drink water. In this case, water is called sul. And then they cleanly wash the bowl, chopsticks, and spoon, and each stores them in their place. Then they perform ganarasa, strolling for a good while. Ganara means circling around the hall. While circling, they call out ganarasa with their mouths. Ganarasa, ganarasa, they chant while circling the hall. Usually, they circle 100 times. A priest, Singwan, stands in front. Standing in front is called gasara, roll duty. When the priest calls out ganara, hanara, the group calls out ganarasa and follows behind. Since the sun is setting and darkness is coming, they are calling the sun. Ganarasa is the sun. It means for the sun to rise quickly and for it to brighten the world quickly. Iorasa. When the roll leader calls this, it is when they have circled for the 10th time. Then the group also responds, Iorasa. Iorasa comes from Arasa and means Nara, that is, life, creating life. A comes from Unga, baby's cry, and means generation. Iorasa is a prayer for ceaseless birth and arising. Samara, when the roll leader calls this, it is when circling the 20th time. At this time, they make no sound and make no footstep sounds. It means to close the mouth and hide. It means avoiding the god of darkness. Saranga, this is 30. Here, they pair up in twos and dance. Magara, 40. The group spreads their arms and runs. It means to welcome the rising sun. It expresses that the longing for the sun's brightness is even more desperate. Sa-na, 50, and it means to rest. People sit down all at once. Sa means stand, ana means lower, so sa-na means sit. It means the people going are resting, but it also means for the sun not to go to another world, but to stay in this world forever. Asana, 60. A means forever, and sana means refreshing. Sana means beautiful, lively, and powerful. Naragana. Adana 80, Aganara 90. As Ga passes, the steps become faster and the sounds become faster, and then the roll leader shouts, Mara. Then the group also responds, Mamara. It means to stop, and it means 100. Wonhyo was also out of breath and sweat flowed. People's energy was exhausted to the point of dizziness. But there is no rest just because of that. People go down to the stream, immerse their bodies in the water, and shout, Ahabara Badara, Ahabara Badara. It means for the body to become bleached. Bleaching means washing away all dirt to make it clean and white. And when they come up from the water, they build a large Gangara fire in the hall yard and sit around it with their backs to it. The sitting shape is the same as the shape sitting with back to the sun earlier. Gangara, Gangara, Gangang Sangara. Bangara, Bangara, Bang Bang Bangara. They sing this at the top of their lungs. Ga and Ba both mean sun. Ga is the old word, and Ba was the Silla word. Gaora, Gaora, Geo, Geo, Sayora. Bagara, Bagara, Baga, Baga, Bagara. All of this means for the sun to rise. Whether clearinda or dawning, Sayinda, it means for the sun to rise. And Bagara is Balara, be bright, tread, in today's language. People become sleepy while shouting. The roll leader continuously goes around with a club hitting buttocks, and then they go into the water again, warm themselves by the fire again, circle the mangama again, and while repeating this endlessly, the moon sets, the stars hide, and Banagasa, the place where the sun rises, becomes reddish. The dawn wind is chilly. Whenever they call Gangara Bangara 100 or 1,000 times, the roll leader shouts Mamara Dadara. Then they rest briefly until the roll leader starts Ganarasa again, and heaven and earth become quiet. When it is quiet like this, the sounds of birds and beasts crying in the mountain are heard, and the sound of water flowing rapidly is heard. Also, slightly away from here, the sound of women who set up camp upstream in the creek singing Ganaras comes mournfully. When the sun comes up, they all bow toward the sun at once. The method of bowing is to raise both knees, spread the knees apart, place 2 fists on the ground, and bow the body 4 times. After doing this, they sweep and wipe again, clear away the Gangara fire, eat Gangabap, and then stroll again, bask in the sun again, doing this without rest. They continue in that manner for Nana, that is, 4-4, meaning 7 days. Those who cannot endure during that time are chased out. If one safely passes 7 days, they rest for 4 days. During that time, they sleep from sunset until sunrise every day. Wonhyo, of course, endured the 7 days well. However, the spots where he was beaten on the buttocks with a club were enough to develop calluses. On the evening of the 4th day of rest, the training people shave the crown of their heads in a circle and paint it vermilion. This is called banga, or bago. It means carrying the sun on the head. From there, they obtain the qualification to go up to Gasanga, Dang, which is 5 rai away. Men who have finished the Gangadang training and shaved their crowns obtain the qualification to mingle with female practitioners who have marked Gonji, Ganada, on their foreheads. Instead of shaving the crown, women mark Gonji. While men chant Ganarasa, women chant Ganada. Goni means Ganada, and Ganada means the place where the sun is, and also means the moon in the sky. Because the woman is the sun itself, the woman calls the moon. Therefore, in the Silla language, a woman or mother is called Ba or Baba, and a man or father is called Da or Dada. It means moon. Wonhyo felt as if all distracting thoughts had vanished, just as his flesh had fallen away during the 7 days of training. Although about 20 men and women walked together on the sunset road, no one seemed to have the sensation that the opposite sex was beside them. Everyone just looked at the road and walked. Since they had lived a mute life for 7 days, they had no thought of speaking. It was as if they had completely forgotten speech. Nevertheless, the men and women walking together in front and behind were all affectionate. Everyone was like brothers. Gasangadang was smaller than Gangadang, but deeper and more solemn. Round cornerstones, round pillars, and round lumber were all used. It showed the roundness of the sun. In front of the hall was a Hongsalman, red arrow gate. 2 pillars were set high, a long crossbeam moon was placed on top, a bow-shaped board was attached on top of that, and 8 spokes were made to extend radially from that board. And all of this was painted red. It symbolized the rising sun. The bow-shaped part is called Ba, sun, and the spokes extending from Ba are called Bagara or Sagara. Sagara stands for Sangara, meaning rays of light. Hanging the crossbeam and rafters when building a house is also this. This symbolized the sun and moon gods together, expressing the moon carrying the sun on its head. The Gangadang Gasara, role leader, who had led Wonhyo's group, stopped the party outside the Daranga. Hong Salmon washed his hands, feet, and mouth alone, and entered the hall. It was to present the list of these people and ask for permission to enter the gate. In the meantime, Wonhyo's party sat in the Ganga-sit posture in front of the Hong Salmon, awaiting the decision. The sun had already crossed the mountain, fog swirled in the valley, and purple sunset glow stood only on the mountain peaks. Eventually, 2 Gasangas wearing purple bangara and yellow bangama with sanga hair came out and called in beautiful voices, Ara. It means to come up. They were all beautiful Gasangas of 17 or 18 years old. Bangama is the lower garment of Sila people, a skirt. Women use purple or crimson, and men use yellow or blue. Ma means clothes, and Banga means descendant of the sun. In Baekje, it is called Dangama or Dangori. This is the etymology of Dioma, Diogori, that is Chima Jogori. Sanga hair is hair combed down smoothly like flowing sunlight. It sees the head as the sun and the flowing hair as rays of light. At Gasangadang, except for the master, everything was being done by women called Gasanga. Wonhyo's party entered the hall under the guidance of 2 Gasangas. Yellow earth and gravel were spread in the yard. Gravel can be the sun and can be the moon. When viewed as the sun, it becomes Gonga, and when viewed as the moon, it becomes Gyeonga, Joa. Yellow earth is sunlight. Wonhyo's party performed the ceremony of first entry at the temple and ate mama. This was abamyum boiled in clear seaweed soup. Ba is rice and aba is millet. Millet is a Baekje word, so it came later. The procedure for eating the gruel was no different from the procedure for eating the porridge. The strolling after the meal was also the same. Circling Gasangadang 100 D times, or calling Gangang Sangara 1,000 times. When 1,000 becomes 10, it is called Jara. When Jara becomes 10, it is called Gara. When Gara becomes 10, it is called Ah, aiming to call it 100 million times in about 4 days. The difference here from Gangadang is that both men and women blindfold their eyes. This is called Sangaganga. Both men and women blindfold their eyes and sing songs and dance to the music of the Gasangas. Wonhyo also closed his eyes and sealed them with candle wax. Guiding this group of blind people were the hands of the Gasang as. Of course, there were no words. It was only dragging by holding hands. There was not a moment of rest. Dozing off was not permitted either. The hand pulling Wonhyo's hand seemed to always be the same hand. That hand was cold but very small and soft. Wonhyo wondered if it was Asaga, the sister of Sangasasama. At dawn, as the first 4 days passed, the group gathered more energy, strolled, chanted, and danced. The sounds of cymbals, drums, and bells, bangal, shook the whole mountain. Wonhyo realized his mind was ecstatic. He was on the verge of forgetting where this was or what he was doing. There were also those shouting loudly. At this time, eyes are said to open. As the sound Asaga rang out, the group shouted Asaga with all their might and stopped. 100 million had been filled. It is also a prayer to prosper for 100 million years. Saga means stand, stand, go, meaning to prosper. It means to flourish. The group removed the wax, sealing their eyes, and went into the stream to bathe. After bathing, they came up, put on clothes, and waited for the morning sun to rise. A red sun rose in the eastern sky. The group sat in the Gangasit posture and bowed 4 times. The sun, viewed with open eyes after 4 days, seemed like seeing it for the first time in their lives. It was so big, so clear, and so grateful. Indeed, it seemed to be the source of all life. On this morning, the master saw the people for the first time. The master was a white-haired old man. His face was reddish, his eyes shone, and his eyebrows and ear hair extended long. By all appearances, he was a man of vitality. The master lifted his eyes and looked around at the people. He was judging the degree to which their minds were trained by looking at their eyes. The gleam in his eyes was very bright and sharp, so meeting them was dazzling and scary. Wonhyo also thought that he was indeed a master. Sasanga, he lamented. Sasanga means master. The master called each person one by one and asked their intent. Gaga Basaga. The one the master called was a boy looking about 18 years old. His eyes slanted upwards, his nose was high, his mouth was tightly shut in a straight line, and his face was dark blue. Ba, the boy replied and stood up. Ba means I see, meaning yes. I intend to destroy Goguryeo to avenge my country and my father. Gaga Basaga answered thus. Gaga Manaba. The master called the next person. The person named Manaba was a gaunt man of about 30. He answered thus. I intend to foresee the future and obtain the power to cure diseases. Next was a girl named Bagaganaga. She was a person with a quite beautiful appearance. She answered thus, I intend to become a master of song and geomungo. In this manner they each stated their wishes before the master. Some said they would learn divination, some medicine. Some wanted to cure their own illness, to live long. Some were women wanting to bear a precious son because they had none. Some wished to become very rich. Some wanted to learn the art of shrinking the earth, chukjisol, to walk well. Some wanted to use the sword very well to become a great general. Some wanted to raise clouds and wind at will. Some wanted to be intelligent because their talent was dull. Some wanted to avenge their parents. Indeed, it was various. Among them, one person was over 40 with graying hair, who said, This body cannot make a whole country peaceful, but I intend to make at least one person peaceful while I live. At this answer, the master rose from his seat and lifted his fan once. Other people also turned their heads toward that person. He was a very handsome and dignified person. His name was Ganasagara. The master looked very satisfied and prophesied, "You will become a person who greatly helps the country in the future. You will be below one person and above 10,000 people." The Gasangas standing around drew out their voices long and praised, "Yobara Yobara, Iarasa Iarasa, Dia 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 Dioda Dioda." It means Jihwaja Jihwaja, live for 1,000 years, 10,000 years. Finally it came to Wonhyo's turn. Sadanga Anga, Sodang Wonhyo. The master called Wonhyo like this. "Ba'a." Wonhyo answered and stood up. "Looking at you, you seem to be a monk, Samun. For what reason have you come to Gasangadang?" the master asked. "As you see, this body is a monk, but I have broken commandments and came hoping to extinguish my sins." Wonhyo answered thus. "Has the wish been fulfilled?" To the master's question, Wonhyo was stuck for words for a moment, then answered, "I intend to do one more week." Regarding Wonhyo's answer, the master passed by as if having no interest. The last one called was Sangha Asaga. Although she was already a Gasanga, she had participated in this training as well. Asaga. When the master called, Asaga raised both hands in the Bangara-style joined palms and answered in a clear voice. Humbly, Asaga wishes to finish this Anga training, become the mate of a man who passes, and give birth to a son who will become a pillar of our country. Even though a girl of only 16 or 17 said such a thing, it was not awkward at all in this seat. The reason is that having finished Gangadang training and Gasangadang training, they were already not worldly people. Although some might return to being worldly people when they go down to the world, for the moment they were people who had forgotten all material desires. Even if a young person of the opposite sex was nearby, it was rare for any desire to arise regarding them. If one were to emit a dirty mind in such a holy seat, a great punishment would fall. To punish, there are tigers, snakes, and scary ghosts. However, it was not because they feared such punishment, but because having eaten gruel and thin rice water for many days and shouted and danced, they were no longer people using physical bodies, but a kind of spirit. Therefore, it was extremely natural for a nubile virgin to speak such a wish. Shame or embarrassment did not fit in this place. Before the god, they were naked sons and daughters. Wonhyo also felt as if he finally understood what the training from the ancestors was at this time. For about 4 days after this event, it was days of music. They played instruments and sang songs. Those who beat drums, and those who hit cymbals, hit cymbals. Shaking bells was also music, and scratching gourds was also music. Wonhyo tapped large and small gourds to match the rhythm. They played in ensemble and solo, and they danced too. The master occasionally came out and listened to this. He would call someone out and make them perform. The mind is excited. Sometimes he gave such reproof. That was reproaching the person's mind upon hearing the sound of the instrument. Whether the mind was excited, scattered, or what they were thinking, this was the master's reproof. The master seemed to see through people's insides. His words were few, but if he spoke even one word, it pierced the person's lungs. "What were you listening to just now?" the master would suddenly ask the disciples. Then the answers were various. Some said they heard the wind crying in the pine trees. Some hear the sound of water. Some heard the sound of birds, and some answered they heard nothing. When each answered like this, the master only listened and said no more. The master asked Wonhyo what he heard. Wonhyo answered, "I heard the sound of my breathing." The master opened his eyes wide briefly and nodded a couple of times. Sangha Saga said, "I was listening to the sound of my heart beating." With these words, the master recognized each person's boundary and simultaneously gave each person an opportunity for self-reflection. On the day the 4 days ended, the master permitted 3 people, Wonhyo, Asaga, and Ganasaga, to go up to Engadang and told the others to return to their respective homes and do as they wished. From 16 people at Gangadang, now only 3 remained. Wonhyo's party immediately bade farewell to the master and left Gasangadang. Angadang was 20 li up from here, on the highest peak of Baga Mountain. Although their bodies had eaten only thin gruel, it was not difficult at all to climb the mountain. It was a party of 2 men and 1 woman. There was no guide and no one to carry luggage. The path was barely existent. The stream water cut off, and only short juniper trees crawled on the ground. There were no birds. What existed were only clouds and wind. There was a small stone fortress on the summit. It was piled roundly, and the open entrance was staggered so that if one curved in, the outside could not be seen, and only the sky could be seen. The circumference was perhaps 20 paces. This is the so-called yoke wall. Any castle gate is like this. It imitated a dragon's claw. Wonhyo, Asaga, and Ganasaga, the three people, first looked for a place with water. Going down about 20 paces north from the fortress, there was a small spring under a rock and a wooden gourd. Wonhyo scooped spring water to wash his hands and feet, rinsed his mouth, and cleaned his body. The other two did the same. Then they each scooped a bowl of water in the gourds they carried and came up into the fortress. This fortress is called Siro, and the peak where Siro is located is called Siro Bong. It is also called Siro Buri. Since this Siro is the place to Aragama, the Anga god, it is also called Anga Siro or Iya Siro. The three people placed their water bowls on the altar. This water is called Sangasa, fresh water, or Sanganasa. Since the Anga god is a void god and a creator god, he has no form. A roundish rock standing tall in the front of the Siro is the spirit tablet. This rock is called Sanabawi, standing rock. The three people crawled on all fours in front of this rock, sat in a crouching position, and called Angara. While calling this endlessly, the sun sets, night passes, and the sun rises again. Here there is nothing to eat but water 3 times a day, living on 3 sips of water. When night came, the wind blew, carrying sand and hitting the fortress. The sound was thumping and banging, very tumultuous. As the night deepened, the wind on the high mountain was cold. When dawn came, their bodies trembled and their mouths froze so that sound would not come out. Wonhyo and Asaga endured bravely, but Ganasaga seemed to have great difficulty. It seemed this was his first time with such suffering. For the first 2 days, Wonhyo also found it hard to control his body due to extreme hunger. Ganasaga, unable to overcome the hunger on the morning of the 3rd day, went down first, and only 2 people, Wonhyo and Asaga, remained in the Siro. To die or to see the Anga god is the goal of this training. Having been 3 people, and becoming only 2, it was even quieter. In the pitch-black night with no fire warmth, the sound of chanting mantras was thin like a mosquito's sound. One did not know if the sound one was making was one's own sound or someone else's. However, at the dawn of the 4th day, Wonhyo felt a new energy arising from within his throat. He felt his voice becoming louder, his body standing upright, and his eyes becoming bright. Wonhyo raised his voice and recited the mantra. Mind and body, guest and dust, vanish forever to the north. Then inherently, inner tranquility and light peace arise. Shinsen kup tu beiyongmi bin the nefa jingan. Wonhyo thought of the Sutra of Perfect Enlightenment. Wonhyo felt there was no need to chant mantras anymore, and he wanted to stay still like that forever. However, Asaga beside him seemed to be suffering greatly. She seemed to be at her limit, hungry and drained of energy, forcibly holding back, nodding off to sleep. Wonhyo thought that the way to help Asaga was to chant the mantra with her, so he started chanting the mantra again with a loud voice. At Wonhyo's sound, Asaga seemed to gain a little energy. The last night came. Passing this night would complete the 4 days. If they safely filled the 4 days, the Anga god would appear from somewhere unknown and give some writing and food. However, if they received the Anga god's punishment, a disaster would happen immediately. On this night, there was thunder and lightning. Thunder roared enough to tear eardrums, and lightning flashed blindingly. After doing this for a good while, rain started pouring. The rainwater poured inside the fortress could not drain fast enough, so there were times when the 2 people's bodies were submerged up to the waist. Still, Asaga did not budge. The storm passed, the clouds cleared as if washed away, and the June full moon hung distinctly in the black sky. The sound of a tiger was heard from somewhere. It seemed to be getting closer. However, Wonhyo tasted a refreshing feeling he felt for the first time in his life. It seemed his mind had escaped all fetters and limitations, and was floating freely in the void. Wonhyo felt pity for Asaga, who was trembling and struggling beside him, so he raised his voice to help her. It became dawn. The fading moon lost its light as a red aura circled in the eastern sky. At this time, Asaga finally seemed to gain new strength, and her voice came alive. Wonhyo was glad. The sun rose. Heaven and earth became bright. Light entered the Sangasa water, and the morning sun shone on Asaga's clear face. Asaga means a child born in the morning, and the Asaga of this morning was truly a child of the morning. It seemed gold light emitted from her eyes and face, and a fragrance of heaven emitted from her wet body. At this time, with a sound, Eomadayada, yes, good, an old man with a long white beard and wearing wide-sleeved earthen hemp clothes entered the siro, having two pretty boys carry something. Wonhyo and Asaga hurriedly stood up, clasped their hands, and bowed their waists. Diara, Diara, the two boys called 4 times. The master sat on the rock and said, "Oh my, splendid. It is the first time in 40 years. The old master praised and complimented endlessly, saying that after Dian and Yusin finished the Ongadang training, not a single person had succeeded. So he thought Scylla's national fortune was exhausted, and this lineage of the way would be cut off. But now that you two have finished this training, Scylla's national fortune will flourish, and this lineage of the way will be transmitted long into future generations." "Now eat," he said, placing the bowl carried by the boys in front of the two people. It was white powder mixed in water. Wonhyo and Asaga said, thank you," bowed twice, lifted the gruel bowl, and drank a mouthful. That taste! Being the end of 4 days of starvation, and likely being arrowroot and hazelnut powder, it was sweet and fragrant, and the taste was incomparable. "Now do you know the taste of rice?" the master laughed. "I have finally known the taste of rice," Wonhyo answered thus. "Without knowing the right way, how can there be knowing the right taste? People of the world live without knowing the taste of rice, without knowing the taste of water, without knowing any taste. Now that 2 people are newly born, heaven and earth are newly engaging. You 2 should bear many sons and daughters. There is much work in our country in the future, so many people are awaited." "This old man goes with a relaxed mind," the master said, and stood up. Wonhyo hurriedly said, "What teaching do you bestow? If you are great Master Wonhyo, what would this body teach?" "The 80 volumes of the Avatamsaka Sutra, or the 80,000 Tripitaka, all come from the single character one," he said. At this time, Asaga asked for a teaching from the master, saying, "What shall this body do?" To which the master said, "A wife follows the husband. This body is not yet married, so I have no husband. Since it is a connection decided by heaven, how could it be wrong? The person in your heart." The master gave the 2 people a piece of paper each, with the character 1 written in vermilion ink and the gruel bowl, and left completely. The gruel bowl was carved from a pine knot. Wonhyo and Asaga bowed countless times toward where the master had gone, swept and washed the inside and outside of the siro cleanly, cleaned the spring, and finally sat before the Sana rock and worshipped the one God. After worshipping and leaving the siro, the 2 people spoke for the first time. Asaga, "Great Master Wonhyo," this was the first speech of the 2 people. Just as the rice had been so good, Wonhyo was surprised that a woman's face, body, and voice could be this beautiful. Asaga felt the same. Wonhyo seemed like the first man seen in the world. The opposite sex was that beautiful and longing to each other. Wonhyo and Asaga sat on a rock facing each other. Heaven and earth all seemed new, and clouds and wind all seemed new. Countless mountain peaks were below their feet, and distant mountains were wrapped in blue energy. Here and there, white river bends were also visible. Moreover, due to last night's rain, the mountains, rivers, and vegetation took on even more vitality. Far to the south, it seemed to be raining even now. It was a time when people's feelings were agitated due to a long drought. Wonhyo prayed in his heart that ample rain would come so the 5 grains would revive. With a mind like the sky cleared without a speck of cloud, Wonhyo sat looking at the mountains, rivers, and Asaga. Now their wet clothes had all dried. The sun shining down stingingly was also pleasant. In the meantime, heat, cold, hunger, and drowsiness were all forgotten. Since they had eaten nothing, they had forgotten even urine and feces. Their bodies seemed to have become like dry sticks or rocks, but inside their minds, a lump of fire was emitting bright light and energy. This fire was a fire that would never be extinguished and could not be extinguished. According to the times, there were occasions when the fire's energy lost its light, covered by greed and anguish, but even if buried in the dark hell of 1,000 kalpas, it was a fire that could not be extinguished. This fire was fire that came from that sun, and was one fire with that sun. Silla people believed that those stars were all one fire with the sun, and that all life was all one fire, so they called the sun Ba, fire also Ba, the human soul also Ba, the head and eyes also Ba, grains and fruits also Ba, mountains and fields also Ba, and thinking also Ba. It means they are all the same fire and the same light. Sounds like Ga, Na, Da, Ma, Ba, Sa. A are attached to the character Ba to distinguish them. Specifically, a benevolent person or noble man is called Baga, which means the movement of light, that is, movement unmixed with impurities, meaning a bright man. A benevolent woman is called Baba or Bama, meaning a place where bright light exists. In Silla, the sun is female, therefore woman is truly light. Now Wonhyo is Baga and Asaga is Bama. They have undergone all the training that can be trained. Wonhyo could see the fire inside through Asaga's eyes. It is the fire of a virgin unstained by dirt. It is the fire with the most fierce power among fires in this world. This fire can build one Buddha world, and can also burn it away. At the same time, it can be the fire of love, and also the fire of jealousy. From within this fire, all sentient beings were born. Fire and force, this is the world. In the beginning, there was void, and in the void there was fire. As the fire moved, force was created, and finally man was created. By the ceaseless movement of fire and force, heaven, earth, and all things are created, born, die, and are born again. This is the Silla people's cosmology and view of life. Being created is a good thing, and dying is a hated thing. Living, being born, and existing are all joyful things, beautiful things, and things to praise. Therefore, flowers are to be praised, virgins are to be praised, and youths are to be praised. Marriage is considered the most praiseworthy thing in life. Therefore, Silla people are extremely generous regarding the love of young men and women. Love is God. Because they praise life, they hated and grieved death all the more. When a loved one died, they loosened their hair, bared their upper bodies, and raised their voices. Anga angaigo aigo. They call the Anga God. It means to give back the fire of the loved one being taken away. That dark void was the mother of all things, but also the mouth swallowing all things back. They pray that the Anga God only gives birth and does not kill, but the Anga God does not listen. Thus they gradually hated the Anga God, and they longed for the Ba God who saves everything. The sun in the sky, the gourd vine on the earth. The gourd vine struck roots anywhere and climbed up anywhere, and every night flowers bloomed to light up the darkness and hung fruit in clusters. The fruit was numerous and large and round like the sun, and inside there were many seeds. That fruit became vessels, instruments, and ornaments. To Silla people, the gourd was the plant of life. Planting gourd seeds in the ground, sprouts rise and gradually extend to reach the sky, and identical seeds pour out in numbers. This is the wish of a couple and the wish of life. They loved not only gourds, but anything that vined and bore much fruit. Wild grapes, hardy kiwis, these were all Ba that they loved. Among things made by human hands, they loved ropes, cords, and threads, and after that they loved woven things and born things, textiles. They loved continuously long things. Making long threads by spinning hemp or making long ropes by twisting straw were tasks that best fit the emotions of young men and women. And drinking wine, hitting cymbals, singing, and dancing were what they liked best. So all these good things were offered to the god. However, people die. All living things die. Things made, mangeojin, all break. Those born all end up going. They do not have the word for dying but say sleeping. Because they hated dying, they burned down the house where a person died. Later, a shaman came to perform purification gasim and burned the deceased's clothes and objects. It is washing the house. If a person dies but has children and dies of old age, it is considered okay. If a gourd vine dies but plenty of gourd seeds remain, it is the same as not dying. A person without children is considered a person who has committed a great sin, and a mother who cannot raise children is seen as having countless great sins. Therefore, the woman's body is treated as precious, so men cannot curse or hit women, and do not use low language toward women. This is because the woman is the priestess sacrificing to the god at home, and at the same time breeds seeds by bearing and raising sons and daughters. Women are not made to do hard work, and are not made to wear dirty clothes. The inner room is a holy room, so outsiders and unclean people cannot enter, and when a woman gives birth, a taboo rope is hung at the gate so no one can enter or exit. Not only young women are like that, but old women also receive extreme respect. The one who offers sacrifices to the village from the household is the grandmother. It is believed that the grandmother has terrifying power. All is a view of life and ethics centered on being born and living. Wonhyo thought about the ancestors' view of life with Asaga in front of him. Bamasa, Wonhyo called Asaga. Bamasa means young lady. Ba'a, Asaga answers thus. It means I saw, so yes. What is your wish? Wonhyo asked this. Having passed many days without speaking, words did not come out well, and the words he intended to say seemed useless. It is said that words have souls, so every word spoken becomes fortune or misfortune for the speaker. It is said that being blessed or ominous lies in words. Words are said to have enough power to kill or save oneself and others, so they say damara. It means to close the mouth. Especially in places like a house where a person died, they say to close the mouth. In any training, damara becomes the greatest precept. Wonhyo was usually a person of many words. He was good at jokes and explanations. However, Wonhyo, who lived a complete damara life for 3 weeks since entering Gangadang, was extremely careful to open his mouth and speak a word. He could understand the mind of the ancestors who said Meosigi, Geosigi before the head of a speech. Meosigi and Geosigi are purification rituals. It implies having bathed and purified, meaning let there be no fault, a wish. Asaga's eyes turned to Wonhyo's eyes. They were clear eyes with no hesitation. Asaga, what is your wish? Wonhyo asked this once more. As I said at Gasangadang, Asaga answered clearly. Meeting a good husband and bearing good sons and daughters? It is so. Is there a man in your heart? There is. It is Wonhyo-sama. At these words of Asaga, Wonhyo was surprised. Wonhyo, me? Wonhyo showed a look of surprise. The master said earlier that you are a mate determined by heaven. Asaga made an expression as if it were unexpected. I am a monk, Wonhyo said thus. I also know you are the husband of Princess Yosok, Asaga said. At these words, Wonhyo was surprised once more. I broke the precepts once, but would I break them twice? Wonhyo said thus. Whatever Wonhyo-sama says, there is no way to change the intent this body has once decided. Since it was said that a wife should follow the husband, I will do as you say, but just do not tell me to leave, Asaga said thus. A monk's appearance is like a floating cloud or flowing water, having no fixed place, so how can we be together? Therefore, change your mind thinking of me, find another good scholar, Sanaba, bear children, and grow old together for 100 years, Wonhyo said decisively. Hearing Wonhyo's words, Asaga smiled silently. Why do you laugh? Wonhyo asked with a straight face. It is amusing that someone like Great Master Wonhyo would test me when you cannot fail to know Asaga's mind right before your eyes, so I laugh. Wonhyo was stuck for words. Wonhyo had encountered Queen Sondeok, Songman, Samo, Princess Yosok, and others considered the best women in Silla, but he felt he was seeing a woman like Asaga for the first time. He thought this was no ordinary woman, but perhaps an incarnation of Avalokitesvara. Wonhyo looked at Asaga for an unknown amount of time. Asaga also did not avoid Wonhyo's eyes. There was no reason to avoid, because there was no hesitation in her heart at all, because there was no shade. It was like the psychology of a child looking at a person they want to see with peace of mind, because there were no wicked thoughts inside. Do not become the mother of one or two people, but become the mother of one Buddha world, Wonhyo said after a good while. Asaga did not know what those words meant, but understood it as meaning to have many sons and daughters. She thought there was no need to dig into it. The reason is that she believed there was no one else in this world to entrust her body to but Wonhyo. Because she believed that if she just followed wherever Wonhyo went and did whatever Wonhyo said, that was all. Her mind was completely at ease, as if she had boarded a big ship. When the sun had risen quite high, 2 Gasangas came up to meet Wonhyo and Asaga. They brought food and clothes to change into. The Gasangas bowed politely to Wonhyo and Asaga. From here on, it was treatment as a master. Wonhyo and Asaga came down to Gasangadang, receiving the welcome of the two Gasangas, and even the master came out to meet them. The fact that the two people did not give up halfway, were not eaten by tigers, were not struck by lightning in last night's thunderstorm, and possessed the gourds given by the divine man Sinan, was proof that they were saints who had finished the Anga training. Yolsigo good, Jihwaja good. The Gasangas circled the two people and praised the god. Wonhyo left Gasangadang. The master took Wonhyo and Asaga to a house outside the village entrance. That house was the house where Wonhyo had stayed for a day a month ago. It was the house where the boy Sasama had hosted Wonhyo. That night, a big feast Janoja was held at this house. Although called a big feast, it was not that many people gathered, but a seat where the leader of the Shindo, way of gods, and the leader of Buddhism agreed in will to discuss how the two religions of Sin and Bull would harmonize in the future, and also a seat where the grand teacher of Gasangadang received the great Dharma lecture of Huayan from Wonhyo and took refuge in Buddhism. According to Wonhyo's words, the ancient Shindo is the teaching of the ancient Buddha, and Sakyamuni Buddha's attainment of enlightenment was also receiving the teaching of the ancient Buddha. So the ancient Buddha is our ancestor, and the ancient Buddha's teaching is in our language. True words. Now I understand clearly. The master slapped his knee and rejoiced. After eating dinner, Wonhyo and teacher Sangha discussed various things about Taoist learning, Dohak, and national affairs. Regarding Taoist learning, teacher Sangha lamented that the way of Pungryu was gradually declining, so that those worshipping heaven and ancestors and cultivating the way of loyalty, filial piety, faith, courage, and benevolence were decreasing, and reproached those cultivating Buddhism for regarding worldly life as bothersome, not looking after the country, and only hoping for their own rebirth in paradise. To this, Wonhyo also expressed agreement. And he said that Buddhism is never a teaching that ignores the present world and hopes for one's own well-being. The Bodhisattva practice of Mahayana is not like that. Mahayana Bodhisattva practice is not minding if one's own body enters hell or the realm of beasts for the sake of sentient beings. Hearing Wonhyo emphasize this, teacher Sangha slapped his knee and exclaimed, "Good. That is it." Teacher Sangha was very happy and rose to take out a book wrapped in a red cloth. It was a book called Gamana Garanamada, also called Sinji, Record of Gods, or Sinsa, History of Gods. It was divided into 8 volumes, Ga, Na, Da, Ra, Ma, Ba, Sa, A, and written in a script similar to today's Hangul but without final consonants. This script represents Ganadhara or Gana. Gana means heaven and also means country. In this, the words of heaven and earth engaging from the void in the beginning were written, followed by the words of the 4 gods Ga, Na, Ra, Sa, sun, brightness, darkness, life, and then the words of gods like Ma, dragon, Ba, light, Da, Me, void were written. Then the deeds of the first human ancestors, Isanami Namagodo and Isanagi Namagodo, were written, and the methods of setting up shrines for these gods, methods of sacrifice, prayer texts called during sacrifice, sacrificial foods arranged, methods for men and women to purify and cultivate themselves, and 360 fundamental principles necessary for human life were written. This is that Sinsa referred to by Choi Chi-wan in the Nanrang monument inscription. The country has a mysterious way called Pungru. The source of establishing the teaching is detailed in the Sinsa. Teacher Sangha laid out this Sinsa and, gathering energy, read and explained it. Serve the king with loyalty, support parents with filial piety, associate with people with faith, do not retreat when advancing to the battlefield, and choose when killing life, even if it is Buddhism. Can it go further than this? If one just does this, if there is a paradise after death, one will be born in paradise, and if there is a heaven, one will be born in heaven, will one not? The way is self-evident, yet people do not practice it themselves and seek something magical. Isn't it foolish? Teacher Sangha raised his voice. True words, Wonhyo answered. Sakyamuni Buddha's thousands of words, if covered in one word, are the single character non-one emptiness, Bi-il Gong. Emptiness means making me empty. Only when I is full inside, How can one practice loyalty and filial piety, and how can one practice faith, courage, and benevolence? Once realizing that I am empty, 10,000 practices are samadhi. Whatever one does fits the way and becomes loyalty, filial piety, faith, courage, and benevolence naturally. As I see it, Gasanga training or Anga training are all nothing but making me empty. At these words of Wonhyo, teacher Sangha unwittingly stood up, bowed, and shouted, "Great Master is my teacher. Right, good, good. Even if one trains for 100 years keeping the greed of I, can the way open? Ah, big and big, truly big. The true way is truly big," teacher Sangha praised thus. Then he called his granddaughter Asaga and grandson Sasama to bow anew to Wonhyo and ordered, "You must serve Great Master Wonhyo as your teacher for your whole life." Asaga and Sasama were happy. Asaga and Sasama bowed to Wonhyo with the etiquette due a teacher. Wonhyo did not stop the siblings bowing, but he was very distressed in his heart. That was because the more deeply Wonhyo reflected on himself in the Yongshindang training, the more he felt he could not yet be a teacher to others. What am I better at than others to become a teacher? People hearing Wonhyo speak like this took it as humility, but for Wonhyo it was sincere. Not at all. Speaking of the great master, your name has shaken the world under heaven. Teacher Sangha spoke thus. That is all a floating name, Wonhyo said. How could that be? Your name is high even in Tang, China, and Queen Jindeok respected the great master as a teacher. This old one's eyes were dim, so I did not recognize who you were. Teacher Sangha praised Wonhyo even more. A vain name is more shameful the higher it is. I left hoping to extinguish this vain name, but now you ask me to take charge of your grandson and granddaughter, so truly I do not know what to do. Wonhyo wore a look of shame on his face and in his voice. A modest gentleman, Gyomgunja? Good. Teacher Sangha slapped his knee again. No, Wonhyo corrected his sitting posture and said, it is not modesty at all. Would I tell a lie to a teacher? I intend to wander like the wind for a few years to cultivate my mind. If this body becomes worthy of being a teacher to others, I will call your daughter and son. In the meantime, teach them writing. And Wonhyo left this place. At the mountain corner, to the two young siblings following him endlessly, he ordered, "Go back in now." "What shall we do until the master calls us?" Asaga asked Wonhyo thus with hands clasped. "Your grandfather is old and your mother is sick, so attend them with utmost sincerity." "How shall we do the work of cultivating the way?" Sasama asked thus. "Being filial to parents is the way," this was Wonhyo's answer. "How is the path of filial piety?" Asaga asked. "If you think for yourself at that time, you will know. If there is no me in the heart and only parents, that is filial piety," Wonhyo answered thus. "Where do you go now, Master?" Sasama asked. "Wherever sentient beings call, wherever my feet go." Wonhyo smiled at the two disciples. "When will you call us?" Tears gathered in Asaga's eyes. "The swallow comes in spring and the wild goose goes in autumn. Stay well. When the time comes, I may find you, or you may find me." Wonhyo touched the heads and backs of Asaga and Sasama and walked away without looking back. The two siblings stood looking for a long time at Wonhyo's hemp robe fluttering in the wind. Moreover, Asaga felt unbearably sad that Wonhyo was leaving. Having spent many days alone together in the empty mountains, deep affection would form even if they were not young people of the opposite sex. How much more so for the admired opposite sex? Although Asaga did not think of it only as love for a man as a woman, still, it was no different from Asaga's first affection for the male gender. To Sasama pulling her sleeve saying, "Sister, let's go in," Asaga's answer, "I want to be here forever," was a frank confession. Sasama looked into his sister's face with surprised eyes and nodded, able to sympathize. "What is the use of standing here? That is true too." The two people bowed once toward the direction Wonhyo disappeared and turned back to the road home.